Good morning, everybody. We're here on a brand new job today. We're going to be redoing this driveway here. You can see it's an old concrete driveway, got a bunch of cracks in it. We're going to be replacing this driveway with a stamped concrete driveway. It's going to be a real nice decorative one. We might do a two-tone on it. The homeowner's still deciding. But we're going to go ahead and start breaking this out, start loading it up. And we're going to be doing some new irrigation valves and stuff like that. So nothing crazy, just some good old-fashioned concrete work here today. And we're gonna start doing the demo now, so let's get it on. Some pretty cool shots with the tractor, the Bobcat here. Mounted a GoPro on the breaker, and this concrete here is breaking out like brittle. This is the original driveway from 1960 when this track was built, and it's coming out really nice. No reinforcement in it, no rebar, no wire, nothing, so it made for a really easy demo job here. We got this whole job demoed and set up in one day, and then I came back the next day solo to do some cleanup and soldering, and then on the third day we came here to pour it out. Initially, me and the homeowner had talked about doing a dark gray cobblestone stamped driveway, and the night before the pour he actually switched it up on me. He went with a brick red driveway here, and I thought it was a little bit interesting because his house is blue. There's no real red accents in his house, but maybe he plans on painting it in the future, something I didn't ask him, so I'm not quite sure, but maybe that is his plans for the future, because then it might look pretty good. But you know, the red and the blue contrast definitely does look a little different, but the homeowner was extremely happy with the final outcome here, so that's all that matters at the end of the day, and he got exactly what he wanted. This is the only driveway in this neighborhood that's actually even been replaced or touched since the original driveways that were poured here in the 60s. So now that he's done it, maybe that'll give the neighbors here some motivation to do theirs next, maybe, who knows. But in terms of the layout on this driveway, everything's basically gonna stay the same here. We're just widening it on the edges a few feet on both sides, and we're also doing 2-3 inches of road base here, and then we're allowing for about 5 to 6 inches for the new concrete slab. I like to kind of beef them up for the driveways because this is going to be, vehicle traffic, and this guy has some trucks and stuff like that, so I didn't want his driveway to crack up how it did previously. So that's why we're going ahead and installing road base, and then we're doing rebar, 2-foot on centers. We're actually going with pink bar on this job here, and I beefed it up even extra for him actually, because I had some extra number 4 1/2-inch rebar, so I went ahead and threw that in for him. So this is a pretty beefy driveway here. I don't think it's going to be cracking at all in the next 60 years for sure. But here it is, basically all set up with the road base installed, forms installed, and now we just got to compact it and lay down our rebar. And we're also going to be throwing our rebar grid on dobies. We got 2-inch dobies for this project here because of the slab thickness is greater than 4 inches. It's about 5 to 6 inches, like I said. So we went ahead and threw it up on dobies so we don't have to worry about picking up the rebar during the pour here today. There it is right there. That's the number 4 rebar by Owens Corning. And interestingly enough, they only come in 10-foot lengths, or at least at the Home Depot that I picked them up at. I couldn't find the 20-footers, so I just said screw it, I'll get the 10-footers, I guess. A little bit easier to work with, a little lighter to pick up and move around. It worked out good. I also set the screed pins about every 8 to 9 feet. So we have our established elevations to work off of for the pumper and the rod guys when we start rodding the slab out. Here's the Makita rebar gun. This is their older version. They got a new one now though with a lot better, thicker gauge wire and a lot tighter ties. So that'll be nice to show off in the future. Whenever we get one of those in, we'll have to do an in-depth review. Good morning, everybody. This is day 2 of this driveway project. You guys saw we knocked this out. We made real good time on this actually. We got this done in one day. So one day we got it demoed and we got all the rebar in. We also got our screed pins in here. Set the screed pins to elevation. We got about 6 inch concrete going in here everywhere. This is going to be a 2-toned concrete driveway. We're going to be doing the powder release, throwing powder on it in an integral color. So the integral color is going to be a red brick by Davis Color Charts, and then we're going to be throwing a dark gray powder release on top of that, and then we're going to be stamping it with the Cobblestone stamp pattern, and it should look pretty sweet when it's all said and done. So we'll see how it goes. We're going to be saw cutting in all of our joints as well, so we don't have to worry about jointing anything. I'm here solo today just to do some touch-up work before we pour. I'm going to be soldering some water lines and whatnot here. Basically, these are the original valves from, I think, 1960. And surprisingly, he's never had a problem with these. They've worked for him this whole time. But we're going to be switching them out for him today. You can see here there's no valve dedicated, no turn-off valve dedicated for the sprinkler valves here. So I'm going to solder on a new valve here, cut all this out, and then he can turn off and on his sprinklers. And then we're going to throw in some brand new valves for him. I got some PVC stub ups here. These shoot under the walkway and go to this planter bed. And I also got some more sleeves that come up here. These start here, they run underneath the driveway, and they pop up on that side of the driveway. So we're gonna connect all that. And that pretty much covers his whole front yard here. So that'll be 3 new valves going in today, and a new main valve to turn it off and on for the sprinklers. And that'll do it. So I'm gonna pop on the head cam, get a little bit of this solder action in, and then I'm gonna call it a day. Get ready for the pour tomorrow. Should be a fun one. Let's do it. I just turned off the water main, so I'm gonna release all this pressure here out of this hose. Yep, no more water. That's a good sign. Let all that water run out, because you don't want any water in the water main when you're trying to solder. That's a recipe for disaster. Well, I got a new tube cutter for copper. This one's pretty cool because it's an adjustment system. You can cut up to a 1-inch tube all the way down to like a 1/2-inch tube or something like that. So you got some options: 1/2 inch, 3/4, 1 inch. This little pipe cutter will cut it all. There it is. See how this baby works. Got all of our rebar here on dobies too, so we don't gotta worry about pulling it up tomorrow. And sometimes I use dobies, sometimes I don't, but the main reason if I don't use dobies is because I'm pouring a 4-inch slab. And what happens is they only make 2-inch dobies. That's the smallest size they make here.
So if you're running 2-inch dobies and then you got you know, another 1/2 inch of rebar on top of the 2-inch dobie, you're looking at 2.5 inches on a 4-inch slab. It's pushing it close to the surface, especially if it's like 3.5 to 4. You might only be an inch above or an inch below the top of the surface, and if that rebar rusts or cracks or it's just poking up out through the concrete, it's not going to be a good idea. So it's best to just always pick it up in that situation. But since I'm running 6-7 inch slab here for this driveway, I'm not really worried about it. I feel a lot more comfortable about it, so I went ahead and threw in the dobies on this one.
Alrighty, so now I'm getting ready to solder here, and I gotta say, this Milwaukee cutting tool, it was terrible. You had to keep tightening the thing and then cutting and then tightening it and cutting, and then it'd bend the copper pipes and it would squish it so your fittings wouldn't fit on it. I do not recommend that cutter, I'll tell you what. But Rigid makes a pretty good handheld cutter, and that one works out pretty good for me. But I probably need a complete new soldering kit because I've been doing a lot of soldering lately, and you know, I'm no professional at soldering, but I'm definitely getting better. And you know, if I just keep trying, eventually I'll be really good at soldering. So you know, that's why I try not to you know, sub everything out, because if I just sub everything out, I'll never be good at it and I won't learn anything that way. So I always like trying new things and getting better at new things, even if I mess up a few times and maybe it'll cost me a little bit more money to do it, but you know, at least I'm learning something new and I enjoy it. It's fun doing new things. So yeah, here we go. I turned off the water main at the water meter down at the street, and I was having an issue with it because it wasn't shutting off the water fully. So that made it really tricky to solder. Obviously, if you guys have done like any kind of soldering work, you know when the water keeps coming through the pipe when you're trying to solder, it's your worst enemy. You're never gonna get a clean solder on it when that's happening. So you gotta figure out different ways. And if you guys know a good way to work around that, let me know, because I'd love to hear it. Here's the main going in, the shut-off valve for the new sprinkler valves going in.
We're here bright and early, getting ready to lay this concrete down. We got everything set up for a successful pour today. I'm not sure if I mentioned it already, but this is going to be a two-toned colored concrete driveway. So we got a red brick integral color going into the concrete, and then we got a medium gray antique release we're going to start walling to the concrete right before we stamp it, to give it that two-tone effect. So it'll be like a reddish gray color to make it look like natural cobblestone, because we are stamping it with the cobblestone pattern, and that'll kind of give it that natural cobblestone look. So we got our rebar 2-foot on centers, 5/8 rebar, we went big on it. We got our screed pin set up, and we just double checked everything. All the slopes are sloping the right ways, and we just got done laying out all of our plastic to protect the house and protect the doors and everything. So when we start throwing that powder, that stuff can be real messy. It's gonna help make sure everything's nice and clean, nice and tidy. I don't really see what could go wrong here. We also got all of our rebar and dobies, so a lot of those comments were like, hey, why are you guys picking up the rebar? Where's the dobies at? Well, you got it today, guys, so there it is. But yeah, I'm ready to pour it out, so stay tuned, and it's gonna be a fun one. Let's do it.
So here's the final setup. Real nice looking setup here for the driveway, and I went all out on the paper and the plastic here. You can see I covered the city sidewalk in paper, and then I covered the garage and the door with plastic, because this is a very messy job here. We're working with red colored concrete, and then later on we're going to be throwing a medium gray antique release powder onto the red concrete, and that stuff's really messy too. So yeah, I mean, if you get any of this red concrete on the walls, or you know, regular gray concrete, it's very noticeable, and I just wanted to make sure we were as clean as possible when doing this one. We're pumping the mud out here at 3000 psi pea gravel mix. It's about a 5.5 inch slump is what we asked for, and then of course we got our rebar a few inches elevated up off of the dirt here on dobies. So no complaints here. I think everything came out real nice in terms of that. And the mud came real nice too. We got this mud from a plant called Benders, and they usually always have pretty good mud. So as our rod guys go back on the concrete, I'm following them up on the 4-foot wooden bowl float, laying it down with that. And then it was a real cold day this day. You could see how foggy it was out there. So there was no sun hitting it. So after I hit it with the bowl float, we kind of just left it alone for a while to let it set up a little bit. This is some real red looking concrete. This is brick red obviously, but when it cures out, it's definitely not going to be the same tone of red. It's going to lighten up quite a bit, and just like with regular concrete, when you pour regular gray concrete, it looks kind of dark gray the day of the pour, but it almost turns into like a white after it cures out. So this will kind of do the same thing here. I'll keep you guys posted on that. And not only that, again, we're going to be throwing the antique release on top of it, a gray antique release, so that'll lighten it up even more. But yeah, the homeowner showed me a picture of one he wanted, and we basically hit the nail on the head with that photo, and he was, like I said, super happy with it, so that's all that matters. So about an hour after the pour, we started hitting it with the funny float and then the funny trowel, and then the sun came out on us, so that helped it dry up a little quicker for us, which was nice. And then of course we hit it with the 4-foot Fresno everywhere, making sure it was real nice and flat everywhere. And then just a little bit more funny float action. She was looking real good, flat as a pancake. It's funny because both of the neighbors on both sides of this guy, the homeowner, they both have red brick roofs and a lot of red brick work going on in their houses. And then this homeowner here doesn't have anything red on his house. So it was a little funny combination going on here. It looked like this driveway maybe belonged to the neighbors, but yeah, like I said, maybe he plans on painting his house or changing the roof. I don't know. Maybe he has something worked up for the future to kind of go nice with this driveway here. But yeah, both neighbors both have a lot of red brick work going on. So now we're out here on the sliders, getting down on it with our hands and knees. And at this point it's basically ready to stamp, and here are the stamp mats that we're going to be using. That's the Cobblestone stamp mats. And before we go out and start stamping it, we like to put some of that antique release right on the mats itself, and then we start throwing the powder directly onto the concrete. And you know, when you're doing stamped like this, it's nice to have a certain kind of brush to throw that powder. Unfortunately, I forgot mine at the house that day, so we had to do it the old school way with just hands, throwing it out by hands. And it's a little trickier because it doesn't spread as nicely when you're throwing it out that way, and you got to use a lot more powder. But we had plenty, so it worked out. And the key here is to make sure you don't trowel any of that powder into the concrete. All you want to do is throw it out there and then immediately stamp it in. If you start troweling it into the concrete, you're never going to be able to pressure wash it off. So it'll basically stay that color, or it'll look kind of weird, you know. This antique release is deadly. It's very dusty, and when you start stamping it, everything starts flying up, so it's pretty brutal using this kind of stuff. But nowadays they have really cool stuff. It's by Brickform. I believe it's called Antique It or something like that. Basically the same concept as the powder, except it's a liquid version, and you apply it the next day after the pour, which is pretty cool. Next time I'll have to try that one out. I haven't tried it personally, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. If you guys have any experience with that, let me know. I'd be interested to see. But you can see here the stamp's coming out real nice. Just 3 guys, and yeah, we're just throwing it on there, laying it down. In the areas where it was getting a little harder, I like to go out there and just give it a little bit of texture. So I'll get the texture mats and kind of texture it out just a little bit here, just like this. And then we can come in with the stamp mats, the Cobblestone stamp mats, and then stamp it out. Another thing to be wary of when you're stamping is making sure you're square with the house here. So luckily our forms, this form right here in particular, was square with the house. So all we had to do was make sure we were square with that form and then work our way back off of that. And we got it real nice and square with the property here, so the lines and everything came out really straight.
Alrighty guys, so we're here the day after the pour. Concrete's a little green today, but we're gonna go in with an early entry saw. I just bought a soft cut blade for it. So we're gonna go ahead and use that machine there to cut all of our expansion joints with. It's the Tomahawk early entry saw actually. So shout out Tomahawk for hooking it up. We're gonna try out their product today. Hopefully it works good, but I'll give you guys my honest opinion and review when it's all said and done. But that'll be later today. Let this baby cure a little bit more. It's still a little green. As it's curing up a little bit throughout the day, we got some nice sun action, so that should help speed it up a little bit while I strip all the forms. And then we also got to rinse all this powder off. I'm gonna broom it up and then shot vac it and then hit it with a pressure washing, and that'll kind of expose the true color of this driveway here. If I have to, I'll lay down a layer of muriatic acid and then pressure wash it. That's only if not enough powder's coming off, or it just kind of depends. It's personal preference really, but it's just kind of knowing what you're looking for here. But yeah, we're looking for a medium gray to red brick natural stone look here, so whatever I got to do to achieve that I will. But anyways, I'm here solo, so I'm just going to start stripping all these forms first off, and then we'll go ahead and start saw cutting and then pressure washing. Let's do it.
Alrighty, so those forms came off real nice and easy. Now I'm just snapping the blue chalk lines, laying out basically the grid pattern for the crack control joints, because you're definitely gonna need them. But I'll tell you what, snapping these lines solo is a pretty tough job. You gotta have something heavy on one end of it to make it work. And then here we go with the Tomahawk early entry. I'm not sure if I got any close-ups of this product, but it actually worked out really good for me. I had a few hiccups with it in the beginning in terms of the skid plate and installing the actual blade itself, but other than that, once I got everything going, it actually worked out pretty good. It's just a matter of getting it all worked out. A lot better than doing it on your hands and knees with a skill saw or circular saw or something like that. And these lines are going to be a lot more straight. And there it is. Pretty basic design here. Nice, clean, simple cuts, and you can hardly see them with this design because I try to keep all of the crack control joints within the lines of the cobblestone, so I wasn't really cutting through any full pieces of the cobblestone. But you can see as I'm pressure washing this driveway just how much of that powder came off, and the gray really only stayed inside those deep pockets of the texture of the cobblestone. But you can see the before and afters here. And you know, like I said, the homeowner showed me a picture of what he wanted, and we basically nailed it to a T, so he was really happy with it, and that's all that matters. And I thought it came out really nice myself. Everything went according to plan. So now all that's left to do is add a sealer on top of this driveway here. We're gonna go with a wet look once it's all cured out. And this is gonna look a lot different once this is cured out, because keep in mind this is only a day after the pour. So it's still really red, but I mean it definitely looks like real cobblestones, so that's good. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you guys did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and let me know what you guys thought about it in the comment section down below. And until next time, we'll be seeing you on the next one. Have a good day. Bye.